Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm sorry for the bit of a hectic start. We've got just under 10 seconds until lights out, and there is James Atkins' car without a livery still. Unfortunately, there's 3 red lights on the gantry, and we have just got ready to start proceedings. It is Colin Knief sat on pole, Willingless in P2 at the moment. A bit of a chaotic start here. Apologies, it was a small delay in proceedings this evening, but we are underway now. We had to miss quali, unfortunately, but we are here ready for Monaco. Race 1 then, and there's already a bit of a chaos at the first corner. That looks to be, who is that there? It's Greg Young by the looks of things. Greg was saying actually it's going to be a bit of a baptism of fire for him, that qualifying session. He's had no prior practice at Monaco, and in fact I don't believe any prior experience in the RSS Formula Supreme. So this is his first time running in the penultimate round this year, and he is hopefully enjoying it, the single-seater action once again, but he is sat currently in last position after a bit of an incident at the start there. We're going to go on board with Colin Knief as he's leading this race at the moment. Looks like there's a bit of action going on with the likes of Alex Smith, Paul Millman and Alan Matthews. That's actually a very good start for Paul Millman there, and there is Nathan Birch having a bit of difficulty there coming towards the end of the looks to be, where is that? That is just before we enter the tunnel there. He's had a couple of issues, dropped back. This is, I believe, his first event, so welcome to the AROC Racing Leagues, Nathan. But we're back on board with Colin Knief as he heads down towards the swimming pool section, coming up to the final chicane, the final part of the circuit now, and has already got a fairly nice lead out in front at the moment, so he's looking very well set up indeed for this Monaco Grand Prix weekend. Of course, Monaco infamous for being a little bit difficult to overtake on, but made a little bit easier by the small compact nature of the cars we are running. It should hopefully, especially with the push-to-pass system, be relatively easy pickings for some drivers out there, with 600 horsepower or there or thereabouts on tap as well to help things along. So yes, apologies for the delays in proceedings, but we are now joining in on the action for this, the penultimate round already. It looks to be Colin Knief seeming fairly confident, or looking fairly comfortable out in front there. Paul Millman currently on board with in P3 at the moment, hunting down Willingless as we head through the tunnel at the end of, well, the start of Sector 2, rather, Turn 9, coming up to Turn 10, that swimming pool chicane now, as we see drivers pushing it to the edge in terms of track limits. They're trying to make up as much time as possible. I think pretty much every racing driver out there rather the swimming pool chicane not be there, but it is a very important part of this historic racing circuit, which comes under a lot of scrutiny recently, obviously, with the nature of the current F1 cars, but I think it's great to see it on the calendar, great to see it here in the Formula Alpha running as well. But we'll go on board now with, let's see who we're going to go on board with. I think we'll go on board with James Atkins. James Atkins, once again, with that livery, I do apologise. I think this will be a running theme until we can try and get this resolved for the second half of the year's running, which is only around the corner. Currently in 8th position, doing a very good job of leading that AM running currently, only a few seconds up the road from Paul Brady. Paul Brady coming around now there he is, just in the background. So the AM running actually doing quite a nice job of staying fairly kind of bunched up together. Should be good to see how they progress through the race, although that won't help Paul Brady too much there as he just collides with the wall ever so slightly. We have in fact turned down damage for this weekend's running, as someone's running very wide there. I believe that is Steve Knight under braking, just about saving his car from the barriers there. We're going to go on board now with John Baker and Andrew Brammer, as they are involved in a little bit of a duo, a little bit of a duel even, as they head through the tunnel. But yes, we've turned damage down in an attempt to make sure that the cars remain raceable, I believe, as it looks to be. I think Colin Knief's had a little bit of difficulty today. He's collided with a barrier by the looks of things. He's able to carry on though. Likewise for Greg Young. Where is Greg Young? He's had, by the looks of things, a fairly nasty impact to the front wing, but is still able to carry on running in the Guy Swarbrick liveried car. Guy not here this evening. He's enjoying a very well-deserved breakaway in a helicopter, I believe. He's camping in a helicopter, which is something new. There we go, back on board with Colin Knief. Now staying at about 4 seconds in the front of the field now. as I believe we're going to go aboard with Alan Matthews. Alan Matthews seems to have picked up a little bit of damage at turn 1 by the looks of things, able to carry on though. Steve Knight currently embroiled in a battle with Nathan Birch, heading up to turn 1, was on the inside there, but had to concede the corner under braking there, and that is a nice overtake for Nathan Birch. What's happened there is just a bit of transponder issues, I believe, currently swapping the leaders of the race around, but we are still running in the same order at the moment, as there is Paul Millman doing a very nice job on the podium at the moment, running fairly well actually in terms of pace. No one is able to touch Colin Knief at the moment at 121.3. However, if we look at the midfield, they're all pretty much even Stevens, I would say, within a few tenths of each other in the 22s. A very even midfield. This could be hotting up a little bit towards the end of the race. Everyone on the soft compound side, which has been a favourite of the RSS Supreme, I believe, apart from maybe the odd outlier. I don't believe we've seen a full field of the medium tyre being ran in the RSS Supreme. The soft compound tyre doing a very nice job for our sprint racing format. But there is Alan Matthews, soon to be under pressure from John Baker as we head down towards turn 18 and turn 19 now. John Baker getting as close as he dares to the barrier there as we go on board with Andrew Brammer to keep up with this little pack of cars. James Atkins isn't too far off that bunch at all, and there is a stunning lap from Colin Knief. Actually, we're going to have to go on board with him. He's just posted a 120.6, and I'm going to go and check the qualifying times, give you a bit of a qualifying rundown so you have an idea as to what went on, but that seems to be a very impressive time indeed. And what we are also seeing is quite a nice difference in terms of setup by the looks of things. We seem to have quite a variation in terms of top speed. So Colin is sat vaguely in the middle there, about 255 kilometres an hour, it's about 150 miles an hour if you're in old money, or soon to be government mandated old money if you're keeping up with current affairs in the UK. And then we have some cars in the 260s and then some in the 240s as well. So we got quite a nice mix there, people trying different setups, as I believe there's been a collision further down the order that is between Nathan Birch and Paul Brady as they head into the tunnel now. They are trying to keep it as clean as possible, but they are enjoying some racing, and a very narrow circuit, of course. There's bound to be some contact somewhere, but they're both able to carry on with things in that Sauber inspired livery on Nathan's car. Very nice overtake there, under braking into the swimming pool chicane, and there is Nathan up into P9, and there is another stunning lap from Colin Knief at 120.3. Only 7 minutes into this race, so the times are starting to fall down already. And there we have that confirmation, a few more drivers setting their fastest laps of the session so far. As we'll go back on board with Colin Knief, as he is currently leading this race by about 8 seconds now. He's building quite a nice margin. He's it's a smaller margin than what we saw between P6 and P7 in last week's Grand Prix, where we saw quite a difference in strategy rather between the likes of Lando Norris and Fernando Alonso. Of course, if you saw that Fernando Alonso choosing to take advantage of the fact that overtaking is very difficult in a modern F1 car at Monaco, backing up the rest of the pack, saving his tyres for the very end where he could break away and set some blistering lap times. And I believe it was pretty much the P1 down to P6 nearly lapped the rest of the field as a result of that by the end of that race. But that's not what matters right now. What matters is this pack of cars heading down through the tunnel, being led by Alan Matthews, reared up by James Atkins as well. Only a couple of seconds separating or covering these 4 cars as they head into the swimming pool chicane. There is John Baker in the rearview mirrors, trying to find a way past there, wiggling about his strategy where he can put the nose to try and intimidate Alan Matthews, the car up in front. But meanwhile, Andrew Brammer fancies a piece of this action as well, but he might be under pressure from James Atkins. Of course, we don't encourage too much racing between the Pro and the Am running well. We're not supposed to encourage it, but I say go for it. Well, not go for it. I say I don't mind a little bit of that as we head down towards turn 18 and turn 19. Back on the rundown, pretty much what is the longest straight, really, apart from after turn 1 and apart from the tunnel. Really, these aren't too much of a corner to these very high downforce cars. So you've got the start finish straight, and then you've got a couple of others really, which are the only places where you can really exercise that 600 horsepower, where the drivers are thinking of using that push to pass system, as these cars are now very close indeed. Only a few tenths separating these as we head down towards the hairpin, the famous hairpin there. And there is contact between Alan Matthews, Andrew Brammer and John Baker there. That could have been quite nasty. Could have been a bit of an issue down at the runoff area, turn 5. They were very lucky to avoid that there. But now we have quite the cluster of cars all occupying the start of Sector 2 as we head down towards the tunnel now. It looks to be Andrew Brammer just about clipping a wall there taking up the inside line. No one's lost out too much, I would say. Nathan Birch, and then made up my own driver, impressing very much on his debut. Colin Keefe now into the low 119s. Nathan trying to find a way up the inside. There's contact between Nathan and James Atkins. Luckily for James, no major ill effects as a result of that, and Nathan very patiently waiting, which is good to see. But yes, all of a sudden, quite the pack forming in the midfield as we are going to go on. I say Nathan Birch is a debutant and is new to this. He is a pro runner, so Nathan might be from before my time. So apologies, Nathan, if haven't quite recognised the name there, but obviously impressing at the moment in the car as we now are on the start-finish straight. A little bit of oversteer from some drivers, but very easily corrected. Meanwhile, out in front, Colin Keefe. We'll go back to our regular Colin watch. Or no, we won't actually. It seems to be Alan Matthews had a bit of an issue at one, a bit of a heavy collision with the barrier, and he's dropping places all of a sudden. It looks to be he's having to turn in quite a bit to get the car around those corners. We have turned damage down, as I've already mentioned, but still a bit of damage on the front wing is going to be notable, and there is some steering damage. And there is some steering damage for him as well, and there is some pretty catastrophic damage for James Atkins. He's involved. Who is involved in that? Nathan Birch and Paul Brady. All of a sudden, it's a massive car park. It's a big car park at turn 5 as he tries to find a way to let the other cars pass. That is not ideal for James there, and he resorts to pitting either as a result of damage or to retire from the race and refocus on race 2. Likewise for Greg Young, which is a shame to see. Gave it his best in a car that he has very little experience in, on a track or a track and car combination he has very little experience in there, and he is retiring from race 1 just before the halfway stage, which is a shame to see. There was Nathan Birch using that push to pass system on the run down to swimming pool chicane rather, as he tries to build back the kind of the gap that he had shrunken down to the cars out in front, and they are Alan Matthews, John Baker and Andrew Brammer. Andrew Brammer really winning out in all of that, using that push-to-pass system as he heads down the start-finish straight, but ending up in P5 at the moment with a couple of seconds for comfort. And there's Alan Matthews, as he's not too far behind, but he's very much more focused on John Baker and Nathan Birch behind. He's side-by-side with John Baker as they head down towards turn 3, and he's having to concede there, I imagine, because that seems to be a little bit of a pace deficit on his car, as we were on board with him just a lap ago when he was having those steering issues. And there is Nathan Birch trying to find a way past there. There is a bit of a bump on the run down to turn 5, so you don't want to be too brave. I saw Sergio Perez actually in the weekend's running get quite a move on there by the looks of things, so that was very brave of him. But we don't want to see too much bravery, of course, or we'll have a repeat of what went on at turn 5 last time round. And there is some fairly substantial steering damage for Alan Matthews there. If he can make this car, if he can get this car to the end of this race, I'll be very impressed indeed. There is another collision with the tunnel there, losing a position as a result of that as well. And there's contact between Alan Matthews and Nathan Birch there. What a shame. I don't imagine that, well, I imagine that'll be considered more of a racing incident. It wasn't really anyone's fault if Nathan Birch tried maybe braked a bit conservatively, rather slow down a bit conservatively. There was nothing Alan Matthews could do about it with a damaged car. Likewise, Nathan, not at fault really for that collision. So I'd say there's a bit of a racing incident there, and Alan Matthews struggling to link that car around. Furthermore, as we go on board now with Steve Knight only 6/10 ahead of Andrew Brammer, that's Paul Brady rather. This is going to keep happening. I'm never going to learn the difference between Andrew Brammer and Paul Brady, so I apologise to both drivers there as we head onto the start-finish straight once again. And Paul Brady trying to use that slipstream, or is he? No, he's going to use the push-to-pass system to go side by side now, heading down into turn 1. Later on the brakes, beautiful move from Paul Brady there to take the position up into P8 for Paul Brady. Fantastic move there at turn 1. One of the few kind of popular overtaking points here on this Monaco circuit. And there's Colin Keefe, who just had a damage warning for him as well, but he seems to be able to be carrying on. I imagine he's using the barriers as a bit of a guideline, as a bit of a, he's pushing the circuit to its absolute limits there, as he's currently 8 seconds out in front. That gap has shrunken just a little bit there, as there's a lot of oversteer over the curb at turn 1. We did actually see in the chat between the drivers, Colin, who usually sets up the setups for everyone, kind of provides a baseline for those who wish to use it. We did see that it was almost like the cars have got a welded diff around here for some reason. The back end sliding everywhere. There was actually a brilliant picture of the Alfa Romeo. Is it the C42? I should know that. Heading around Monaco with the same amount of oversteer. As a bit of a reminder as to what these cars are like. So the drivers are executing their talent to their absolute best there to keep these cars going around this Monaco circuit. These are not an easy car around this track, it seems to be, although they do promote a decent bit of overtaking, especially with that push-to-pass system. As we are going to go back on board with Paul Brady, now about 2 seconds clear of Steve Knight, so he's done a good job so far on the previous lap of breaking away from his nearest rival on track, and seems to be enjoying this race a fair bit, I would say. If we look at his current pace, he's currently in the 124s, which is looking very competitive in the AM running. James Atkins, of course, having to pit after that incident there. But apart from Nathan Birch, who isn't an AM runner, he's currently on top, is Paul Brady in terms of the AM pace. In terms of the pro pace, that has to go to Colin Keefe. Colin Keefe still out there setting purple sectors, doing a very nice job in the low 190s. He's backed off that a little bit now, as he doesn't need to push it too hard. We've got just under 10 minutes to go in this race before he maybe wants to think about trying to build that gap a little bit more for a bit more safety. Of course, not wanting to overcook it and find himself in some part of the swimming pool chicane that he shouldn't be, maybe the swimming pool itself. Of course, by swimming pool, I mean the big ocean to the left there of the circuit, the big harbour there, and there is, I thought that was someone going off for a second. No, it's just Paul Brady doing a very nice job of catching up to Alan Matthews. Alan Matthews, of course, experiencing those issues in the car, doing a very good job actually of still managing to keep going in P7 at the moment, but that gap between him and Paul Brady is certainly closing. And there is that gap between Paul Brady and Alan Matthews shrinking by the second now as we head down towards the hairpin, turn 6 here. The gap now standing at about 0.8 of a second, slowly shrinking. Alan Matthews really going to have his work cut out for him, trying to get that car around the hairpin, and we can see that gap still shrinking. Meanwhile, the gap between Steve Knight and Nathan Burch shrinking as well as we head down towards the tunnel now. He's going to have the advantage of the slipstream. Steve Knight's going to have to work out for him, trying to keep him behind as we head down towards the swimming pool chicane, that heavy braking zone there. They are side by side now, and Nathan is using that push-to-pass system. Under braking gets the move done into turn 10. Beautifully executed move there by Nathan Birch. Meanwhile, Paul Brady getting the overtake done on Alan Matthews as well. I think that was just a matter of time, really, with the issues that Alan is experiencing in the car. And there we see Nathan Birch as well, might be the next person to launch an attack on Alan Matthews as we head up into turn 1. That gap slowly shrinking. There is the pace deficit that Alan Matthews is experiencing. About 7 seconds that car behind as they are side by side and through turn 1. Very easy pickings for Nathan Birch that time round. Meanwhile, further up the order, we haven't seen too much going on at the front of the pack, but there is Alex Smith getting closer by the looks of things to Paul Millman. Paul Millman been sat in P3 for a little while, doing a very good job of it, but he might be under pressure towards the end of this race from Alex Smith, the car behind. As we see there, Paul Brady very much under pressure as we head down towards turn 18 now. Nathan Birch trying to find a way past as we look towards the start-finish straight. Nathan Birch seems to be very eager to use that push-to-pass system, seems to be on the ball with it, and I imagine it's only a matter of time really until he soon sees the car of Nathan Birch very close in the rearview mirror, and there it is through turn 1, trying to find a way up the inside, under braking. Wasn't going to work that time round. Very difficult circuit to overtake on, of course, as they are near enough side by side heading up into turn 3. That requires some bravery, that is for sure, and he's still not passed yet. as we see Paul Brady very much on the defensive here, doing a very good job of it as well. He's going to force Nathan into a mistake, riding over those bumps, heading down towards the tunnel now. No, I imagine he's going to have to wait until potentially the end of the hairpin. It's not too impossible to see a move done there, but of course, if you position your car just right like that, there's no way past at all as we head down towards the tunnel now. This will be Nathan's next opportunity. Only a half of a second separating these two drivers in terms of best lap pace. It goes to Nathan Burch by about 7/10 of a second, both in the 22s. But there is the confirmation that Nathan Burch certainly has pace underneath. But under braking, it's a bit of a favourite for Nathan by the looks of things. Under braking into the swimming pool chicane, Nathan gets a move done up into P7 now. Meanwhile, there is Colin Keneath. Colin Keneath, we haven't seen too much from. Only 5 minutes ago in this race, and he's been leading comfortably for the entirety of it. There, as we go on board with Alex Smith now. That gap still standing at about 4 seconds. Hasn't quite closed up yet, and there is a little bit of contact with the wall. He doesn't want to do that too much, lest he pick up some suspension or front aero damage. He will start to drop back, and by the looks of things, that has already cost him about a second. So, one to watch out for there. There we see Colin Keneath getting past some lapped traffic now as we head up through turn 1. Some very impressive pace on demonstration from Colin Keneath here. Board with just a bit of a rundown through the order. I think there is Steve Knight next to be putting the pressure on Alan Matthews there. Alan Matthews really struggling with this car. He's done a very commendable job of bringing this car home given the circumstances. Even if he makes it to the end of this race, I'll be very impressed indeed. And there is Steve Knight using as much of the track as he can to try and catch up, try and get that overtake and score some all-important points. Although I believe this won't change the order in the AM running. No, it won't. The AM running currently being led by Paul Brady. We'll have a bit of a check actually on how the AM Championship is doing, because of course the championships this year all very close indeed. Even at this late stage in the championship, and there we see that it looks to be that James Atkins currently leading the championship by a fairly comfortable margin, although Paul Brady, the next driver to challenge him, as it looks to be, is very, very close between the two. There, Paul Brady is only about 30 points behind, so if this weekend goes his way, could very much still be in contention for the AM Championship here, especially with the bit of a disaster that James Atkins has had. Meanwhile, Colin Keneath leading that Pro Championship, 338 points to Will Inglis's 302. So still potentially in it is Will Inglis, but I believe it looks to be fairly secure for both championships for the time being here at this penultimate round of the first half of the year's running, and what an enjoyable first half it has been. Now with Alex Smith. Alex Smith has done a very good job of catching up to Paul Millman. That car in front now standing at about 2.5 seconds, the gap between the two. Maybe we could see a bit of a challenge coming on towards the end of the race. We have just over 2 minutes to go in this race, plus a lap of course, but it is a very tricky circuit to overtake. I need quite a nice pace advantage really to get the move done, and there is, speaking of pace advantage, there's another fastest lap from Colin Keneath for 1:19.3 this time around, so he's picked up the pace a little bit. The fuel load's gotten a bit lighter, and the tyres once again in a comfortable window. He can start pushing now. There's a bit of contact with the wall for Alex Smith there. It's probably a very good job that we did turn down damages a little bit. And there is Paul Brady getting past Nathan Burch there. I believe he had a fairly substantial gap, did Nathan Burch, or something must have happened at turn 1 for that to occur as we headed down towards turn 5 once again. Nathan Burch looking for a way up the inside, but he's just too far back on this occasion. He's still got a couple more opportunities. He wants to try and take that position back, and I would like to... Oh, there's been contact between the two. Contact between the two at the hairpin. Not sure what went on there. I believe it was just a very unfortunate clipping of the rear for Paul Brady's car, and those two doing a very good job of trying to stay out the way of the leaders at the moment, trying to rejoin, because that's the issue with Monaco, of course. One tiny error happened at a narrow part of the circuit like that, and you've basically caused a giant roadblock but we've been able to clear that relatively quickly in the end. Meanwhile, the gap between these two still staying at a relatively, these two being Alex Smith and Paul Millman, of course, staying at a relatively stable level now. Only 30 seconds to go on the timer. At some point, we are going to go on board with Colin Keefe for a bit of celebratory, if I can get my words out properly, celebratory lap with Colin Keefe as he navigates Monaco for what will be one, I imagine, very pleasant lap at the end of the race, as he should be taking the race win, unless something goes wrong at the very end here. It looks to be Paul Millman only just about making the corner at turn 18 there on the brakes. Has done a very good job in this race of going around for so long, starting to be under pressure from Alex Smith by the looks of things, so maybe not too secure on the podium is Paul Millman, as we now have just 2 laps to go, and we'll go on board with Colin Keefe to see where that stands at the moment. We are currently heading through the tunnel with Colin Keefe, so just over a lap to go at this stage. And we're going to stay on board with Alex Smith as he's hunting down Paul Millman, trying to find a way onto that podium. Paul Millman defending with everything that he has into turn 5. Turn 5, a very tricky place to overtake, likewise the hairpin coming up, unless you want to end up with a car in a barrier like Nathan Birch there. It's all gone a little bit wrong for him at the very end of this race. Luckily able to get out of the way just in the nick of time as we head down towards the tunnel now. Paul Millman has a bit of lap traffic to contend with, very easily getting out the way of him there. Very good to see Alan Matthews making quite a nice job of that as we head down towards the swimming pool chicane. Now it is still Paul Millman who leads these two into turn 10. Both drivers pushing the track limits to the extreme there to try to make up even the slightest millisecond of time there. But it looks to be that for now Paul Millman is safe, although we'll have to go back on board with them as we head down towards the start-finish straight. There's contact between the two. There's contact between the two. Alex Smith just having to back off ever so slightly there. His front wing touching the rear wheel of his rival's car there as they head down onto the start-finish straight for another lap here at Monaco. Lap traffic getting out of the way there. Alex Smith using that push-to-pass system, trying to find every advantage that he can as we head down through turn 1. Both drivers being very extreme with the track limits there. Actually making contact with the wall does Alex Smith, but still in P4 at the moment. This is a very tricky circuit to make an overtake on, and at about 5/10 of a second he hasn't quite got the pace advantage. That gap is just a little bit too big as we head down towards turn 5. We're going to go on board with Colin Keefe now as he heads into sector 3 for the final time in race 1. He's done a very impressive job this weekend, a grand slam so far that he's on for. Let's see how race 2 goes, but he has led every lap of race 1, qualified on pole, and will be taking the race 1 victory. Congratulations, Colin, for an impressive drive there. As we see, there is Will Inglis heading through sector 3 as well, but it is the battle between Paul Millman and Alex Smith that we are focusing on. Paul Millman looking just a little bit more comfortable this time round. This should seal the podium for him. Let's see what happens as we head through the swimming pool section for the final time now. Heading up through turn 18 then. Will Inglis looking fairly comfortable on the second spot of the podium as he heads down the start-finish straight for the final time and taking the second spot on the podium. Congratulations, Will Inglis, for P2 here at race 1. And there is Paul Millman just about keeping Alex Smith at bay. Very well done to both of these drivers there for an excellent battle towards the end of this race. Paul Millman rounding out the podium, then taking P3, and Alex Smith coming home P4. It's a very nice job from both drivers. And there is Andrew Brammer after capitalising on the mistakes of some other drivers there, found himself in a very nice position indeed, eventually finding his way up into P5 as well, so a very nice job for him. And then we have John Baker coming home P6, Paul Brady P7, Alan Matthews P8, Nathan Birch P9, Steve Knight P10, Greg Young P11, and James Atkins P12. So that rounds out the running for race 1. I will join you in a few minutes as we get ready for the reverse grid race action for race 2 here at Monaco. And welcome back to the action here at Monaco. We are ready for the reverse grid race now. It is Alan Matthews who sits on pole, John Baker P2, Andrew Brammer P3, Alex Smith P4, Paul Milman P5. I believe we are missing someone though. Are we? No, it looks to be okay. Willing Bliss P6 and Colin Keefe P7. And then I can't quite make out the rest of the field. The AM running separated just a little bit further down the order, but I can tell you that it is then Greg Young, Nathan Birch, James Atkins, Steve Knight and Paul Brady. And race one certainly impressed. Of course, there is always the fear with Monaco that the action isn't going to quite be there, but there was plenty of it, plenty of battles going on throughout the running. Actually, what impressed me most, I'd say, about race one is just how long some of those battles endured for us, particularly in the midfield. So hopefully, with a bit of a change-up in the order, race two certainly won't disappoint. But for now, it is 6 red lights on the gantry. The revs start to rise, and we are away for race two. A little bit of smoke from everyone off the launch there, but Alan Matthews actually getting a very good breakaway, as does Andrew Brammer heading into turn one. Now goes up the inside, and there's a huge collision involving Alex Smith, Colin Keefe, in fact involving every single member of the field, I would say, apart from Alan Matthews and John Baker there. As we head up into turn three now, it's just these two that lead away with the pack. Nathan Birch and Willing Bliss not too far behind, but judging, I think they were involved in the collisions as well, because look there at Nathan Birch's car looking very upset, as is Willing Bliss's. Willing Bliss was full lock there to try and get the car round. He's going to be suffering throughout this race, I would say, if we don't choose to restart. I can't remember the last time we chose to restart a race, actually. It's been quite a while, but yeah, there is Willing Bliss's car not happy at all. Likewise for Nathan Birch as well. He needs to get that car out of the way, which I think there's just about enough room there for the rest of the field to squeeze through. What a shame to see his race start like that as well. This has been a dream start for Alan Matthews and John Baker. Alan Matthews, who suffered a little bit through race one, has all of a sudden found himself with quite a nice position here in race two, using that push-to-pass system to try and break away from John Baker, his only threat in this race so far. Although according to the time system, Reeve Taylor is currently leading the race, which is good to see. Not often that happens, although I can confirm in my 75 turbo I'm probably going to struggle against these RSS Supremes. They're a bit of a lock-up for John Baker heading into turn 18, just about salvages it away from the barrier there. But what an interesting start to race two that was, as we head down towards the start-finish straight once again for another lap. And there is confirmation that Williams' car suffering just a little bit now. James Atkins just about avoiding the barrier at turn 19 there, able to carry on. Colin Keefe putting the pressure on as we head into turn one. He's trying to overtake Steve Knight, but Steve Knight just about having the better of him as we head up through towards the highest part of the circuit now. And there is Colin Keefe very much on the rear wing, on that rear gearbox. No, of course not the front gearbox on these rear-wheel drive cars. As we see them now, Steve Knight going for the outside line there. Colin Keefe going to have the inside under braking. I imagine he might be thinking about getting a move done, but Steve Knight very good on the defence there, keeping Colin Keefe at bay as we head down through the hairpin now. The field still only somehow separated by about 15 seconds, 8 of those or 7 of those being as a result of that impact. So that impact actually clearing away quite quickly, despite how major it was, despite how much of the field it involved. Greg Young conceding the position there by the looks of things to Andrew Brammer, and there is Colin Keefe using that push-to-pass system within the tunnel, actually getting the move done and up onto the podium for Colin Keefe. And now we get to see the real charge happening. I believe he's pretty much clear of damage by the looks of things, is Colin Keefe. I could be wrong there, but with some clear air out in front, and we know he can run the low 190s. Let's see what Colin can do in terms of catching up to those two cars out in front. Alan Matthews has been able to break away just that little bit from John Baker, and now we're going to see Colin Keefe start to put the pressure on. So there's two front running cars there, as we see Alan Matthews holding the fastest lap of this race so far, although will that be taken away by Colin Keefe? Yes, it will, into the 122s for Colin now, so he is on a charge. I do love a bit of a Colin Keefe comeback charge. It's happened quite a lot in this year's running. Is that a transponder issue, or is that genuine? No, that is genuine, and that is John Baker trying to find, or rather finding a way past Alan Matthews now, as we head down towards turn 5. For whatever reason, Alan Matthews losing the position there. I'm not sure what went on. It looks to be he's had a bit of an issue at sector 1 by the looks of things, but there is an issue for John Baker in sector 2, colliding with the wall at the hairpin there. So both of the leaders losing out, and this plays right into Colin Keefe's hands there, as there's quite a bit of damage on the front end of John Baker's car by the looks of things, so he's going to be suffering, and there is confirmation of that suffering. But likewise for Alan Matthews there, I think he's also got suspension damage in this race as well, and that does not help matters at all. Off at the swimming pool chicane for Alan Matthews as he drops back big time. They're now down into P3, and there is P2 for Colin Knief. Meanwhile, further down the order, Alex Smith getting the move done on Steve Knight into the swimming pool chicane as well. So there's plenty of action here at Monaco for race 2 so far, as these two doing a very nice job actually breaking away from the rest of the field, catching up pretty much to the front runners now. As Colin Knief, speaking of catching up to a front runner, as we head round turn 19, is only 0.3 of a second off John Baker in front as we head down towards the start finish line once again now. And there is Colin Knief going up the inside there, just a little bit too far back though, as we have the run up towards turn 3. Turn 2, not too much of a corner in these high downforce cars, of course, there. But Colin Knief desperate to find a way past, but looks of things, John Baker is going to be putting on a bit of a defensive drive, though we know he can. We've seen it many times from John Baker, but there is Colin Knief positioning his car perfectly just to intimidate that car up in front. But they are losing time as a result of all this battling. There is Alan Matthews. Alan Matthews having a bit of an issue at turn 5, but looks of things able to carry on, but very much slingshotted backwards there. Alex Smith and Steve Knight now in the mix for this as well, as we go back and forth with the two leading cars. Only 0.5 of a second separating these two cars. We head down through the swimming pool chicane once again. Willingless setting the fastest lap of the race so far, of course, having those issues at the very start of the race. He's been able to pit and get a fresh set of boots on the car, and with a bit of clean air, able to pretty much set some quali laps, I can imagine, only with a little bit more fuel load this time round. And there's a bit of contact going on throughout the field, but looks things involving Alan Matthews and Greg Young this time round. Greg Young also having a bit of a nightmare in race 2, of course, not his fault. He's had pretty much no practice. It was on a whim, by looks of things, that he decided to join in the action. There is Colin Knief deciding to get a move done there, but not able to do it this time. Of course, John Baker outbraking himself certainly helps matters out, and there is Colin Knief up into the lead of this race now. But John Baker will be fighting for it, I can imagine, because he's certainly got the pace to do so. Separated by only 0.7 of a second so far. That gap building ever so slightly though. Meanwhile, Alan Matthews defending from Alex Smith. Alex Smith achingly close to the podium in race 1, achingly close to the podium so far in race 2 as well, only he's a little bit closer a little bit earlier on. So Alex Smith would be wanting a bit of redemption, I am sure, trying to find his way to get some silverware this time round, as we run down towards the tunnel once again. There is Greg Young pitting here. Meanwhile, Nathan Burch will go on board with him in the midfield. A bit of midfield action, bit of an update on what's going on further down the order. Nathan Burch in P7 at the moment, currently pretty much the quickest in the midfield as he is catching up to Andrew Brammer. That car up in front, is that Andrew Brammer? Is that Paul Brady? We'll find out in just a second. It's Paul Brady, but he's in a Paul Brady Andrew Brammer sandwich here because those are the three cars currently occupying P6, P7 and P8. Speaking of cars occupying positions, I imagine the cars occupying the positions are about to change around just a little bit, because Alex Smith is very much hot on the heels of Alan Matthews as we head onto the start finish straight now. And there is Colin Knief posting a blistering lap of 1:21.7. Not quite as quick as what we saw in race 1 though. I imagine he's not quite as comfortable yet, not found his rhythm so far, because he's had to work for it this time round. And using that push to pass system now, Alan Matthews trying to break away from that car behind just a little bit now. As there is an issue there, by the looks of things, that is for Greg Young, as we see. Apologies for the delay in the audio there. But there is Alan Matthews currently fighting to keep P3. John Baker, meanwhile, involved in this as well, of course. So there's a three-way battle for two of the spots on the podium. But looks like that was Greg Young, I imagine, dropping back to let some of the leading cars pass the Colin Knief now into the 120s. But the three cars battling for the podium are the cars we're going to focus on at the moment as we head up through turn 1. Alex Smith there looking very eager to overtake, but at this Monaco circuit with Alan Matthews on the defence there, he's struggling to do so. Alan Matthews, of course, very well versed in the defensive drive there. We've seen Alan Matthews pack battling. He's probably one of the highlights for me in terms of a pack battle, in terms of racecraft. He has executed it very well many times, has showed how he can progress his way through a field or keep his position very nicely on a number of occasions, not only in the single seat running but the touring cars as well. Meanwhile, I was just about to go on board with him, but they changed positions just a little bit too early there. There is Nathan Birch up into P5 now. I mentioned he's going to be progressing his way through the midfield quite nicely, and there is confirmation of that up into P5 now. Steve Knight dropping back a little bit by the looks of things as he heads just about to enter the tunnel there. He's having a couple of issues with the car. I can imagine that, yeah, he's pitting there. There is Paul Brady up into P6, Paul Mullen P7, and Andrew Brammer P8 now as well. There's been contact by the looks of things, or something gone wrong at the swimming pool chicane by the looks of things, and that is a disaster for Alex Smith. Alex Smith fighting to be on the podium, fighting for his spot on the podium as he was in race 1, but it's gone much worse this time around, dropping down into P8 now as a result of an issue at the swimming pool chicane. As we get ready to continue with the two battling it for a spot on the podium. This time, though, they are just looking to trade positions. They haven't got to worry about dropping off unless something goes really awry there. But there is John Baker using the push-to-pass system out of turn 1 to keep Alan Matthews at bay. But for how long can he do so? As Alan Matthews looking looking like he was very, very unsettled under braking, it must be said, heading up through turn 3, just about making the rest of the corner there as we head down towards turn 5 now. The gap standing at about 0.5 of a second, heading through the hairpin. Alan Matthews carrying just a little bit more speed there, positioning the car ever so slightly differently, following a tighter line on exit, which should position him a little bit nicer for the upcoming corners. I would say it did so there. John Baker running a little bit wider, but of course I'm no racing driver, that is for sure. I should probably give this a go at some point, the RSS Supreme. It's the one car I haven't quite tried out yet. I must do so at some point. Of course, I believe we're continuing with it for the next for the second half of this year's running. Of course, though, that is if I can't tempt Guy Strawbrick, the organiser of the event, to get us into the Alfa Romeo C42 mod that I very much like the look of. I wouldn't mind commentating on some F1 machinery if I can just about keep up with it, although sometimes I do struggle to even keep up with the RSS Supreme that we are very much enjoying, and have been enjoying for the first half of this year's running. What a way to send it out. Of course, we have another round coming up at Baku. There's not at Baku. Actually, it is not at all at Baku. Apologies. It is at Canada, where we usually traditionally end a season's running, if you will. But there is Alan Matthews getting very close indeed to John Baker. Unfortunately, a track just not wide enough for him to find a way past. Frustration for him, I'm sure, but there is still a couple of overtaking positions or places that he can take advantage of with the remaining half of this race. But yes, of course, the traditional end to all the season finale being Canada. There, another circuit which should prove the immense raw straight line speed or raw pace of these cars, really. But yes, I wouldn't mind seeing a bit of F1 action, that is for sure. But yes, I must find some time to get used to these cars from a driver's perspective. Of course, the Tata Zabuon, something I'm very familiar with actually, with its multi-air engine, that little 1.4 doing its best. Sometimes struggle at some of the longer circuits. It was quite fun around Monaco, I would say, although some of the drivers, I'm sure, had their complaints about it. These cars doing a very nice job indeed, as there is Alan Matthews. His car's doing a very nice job for him as they are near enough side by side as we head down towards turn 18. Still not quite able to find a way past there. John Baker getting a little bit wrong under braking there, and up the inside of turn 19 goes Alan Matthews into P2 now, and for good measure there is Nathan Birch as well. Nathan Birch quietly in the background was catching up to these two who've been battling out for quite a while now, and Nathan Birch, setting a fairly fast lap on that previous lap, has been able to catch up and find a way past John Baker. So a bit of a disaster at the end of that lap for John Baker. Nathan Birch now with a place on the podium. Nathan, I should mention, I thought was a pro runner. He is in a pro car, but he is on an invitational license at the moment, trying out the session trying out the series for the first time, and he's doing a very nice job of it. I must mention, currently sat on the podium. If things go his way, he will come away from this weekend fairly confident, I am sure, and certainly deserving of a place for the remainder of 2022's running. as we head down into the tunnel once again. James Atkins, by the looks of things, having a bit of difficulty in this race once again. I'm sure Monaco, a weekend he's wanting to forget in a fairly sharp manner. Of course, we know James has some incredible pace underneath him, but it just didn't come together for him this weekend, unfortunately, as it hasn't done for a lot of drivers. Monaco, very tricky indeed, requires an immense amount of practice, and there is an immense amount of practice on display here between Nathan Burch and Alan Matthews. Nathan Burch just about getting a move done on him, unfortunately having to concede the position as we head down towards the swimming pool section. He's going to try once again, though, I am sure, as we head down towards the start-finish straight. Nathan Burch trying to echo what Alan Matthews did to John Baker just a lap ago, getting a bit of oversteer, though, which certainly doesn't help. Matthews drops back a little bit as a result of that, and we've got just over 10 minutes to go in this race. Meanwhile, we haven't looked at him too much. I'm not going to pull a Lance Stroll a la 2021 Monaco Grand Prix, but we'll just focus very briefly on Colin Keneath. Colin Keneath doing a very nice job in the lead of this race at the moment by about 34 seconds. And there's contact between Nathan Burch and Alan Matthews through turn 4. Luckily, both drivers able to carry on. No major roadblocks as a result of that. A lock-up for Alan Matthews as he heads down towards the hairpin. Still in P2 for the moment, though. Still in P2 for the time being. As we'll go on board with Alex Smith. Alex Smith having a bit of a disaster just a few laps ago. Currently ahead of Andrew Brammer, only by about a couple of seconds, though. If we look in terms of their current pace, it goes to the favour of Alex Smith, though. It looks to be he should be relatively comfortable in P6 at the moment. Someone who isn't comfortable in their position, though, is Alan Matthews and Nathan Burch. Seems to be whenever we rejoin their action, there's a bit of contact between the two, and that was fairly substantial, it must be said. The Nathan Burch losing out big time there. I think he's got terminal damage by the looks of things. That car really struggling. No, he is able to carry on, but has lost a couple of positions as a result of that. And all of a sudden, Paul Milman finds himself back with a spot on the podium, doing a very nice job this weekend then, as he has it seems to be a bit of a race of attrition for him, this race 2, by a decent margin. Currently sat in P3. John Baker, Alex Smith and Nathan Burch all embroiled in a bit of a battle, and Nathan Burch contacting the wall once again. This is not the way he wanted his race to go. This race a bit of disaster towards the end for him, much like race 1. Alex Smith using that push-to-pass system to find his way up into P5. Meanwhile, John Baker in P4. Also using that push-to-pass system. This is exactly what Paul Milman needed. He's now got a couple of seconds to the cars behind there. Only a couple of seconds to the car in front of Alan Matthews. If we compare their pace at the moment, Paul Milman is on a bit of a flyer in comparison to Alan Matthews. We may find Paul Milman in just a few minutes' time competing with Alan Matthews for P2. Meanwhile, though, it is Alex Smith and John Baker battling it out as we head around the hairpin. Very tricky to get a move done there, and it hasn't happened this time round, but these two are going to be battling for some time yet, I can imagine. They've got, I'd say, pretty much even pace, and they are looking very, very competitive indeed now as we head down towards the swimming pool section in just a moment's time now. John Baker currently leading this pack, then Nathan Burch trying to find a way up the inside, potentially just a little bit too far back for it, though. Alex Smith having to run off the track there to make sure he doesn't make any contact. I believe he may have actually made some contact there, but carries a bit more pace compared to John Baker on the exit of turn 12. And there is Nathan Burch trying to find a way round the outside by the looks of things. Wasn't going to work from there, and there's contact between the two once again. Oh dear, it's all gone a little bit wrong for some drivers at the end of this race, and there is Alex Smith trying desperately to carry on. Overcooks it though, and there is a bit of a donut there for Alex Smith. Nathan Burch blocked as a result of this. It's all gone a little bit wrong for some drivers, and now that means that these drivers who were on the podium just a few laps ago are now about a minute down off the lead of this race then. Willing Gliss finding his way up into P8. It's been a bit of a quiet one, race 2. Been a bit of a quiet one for Willing Gliss, has race 2, and there is Nathan Burch pitting here as a result of his issues in this race. Andrew Brammer meanwhile up into P5, just a second or so off John Baker, the car in P4. He's had a bit of a quieter one now as some of his competitors have been shall we say, suppressed in this race. Then Paul Milman then currently in P3 by comfortable margin. What an excellent weekend this has been for Paul Milman. If he can bring it home with just about 7 minutes to go in this race, he'll be very happy, I am sure. Then Alan Matthews in P2 at the moment. Then currently about a second and a half to Paul Milman, so he's going to have to watch out towards the end of this race. We may see a bit of a battle forming for P2 in just a few laps time. Meanwhile, Colin Keneath busy out there setting purple sectors as he heads round the hairpin there. A purple sector through sector 1 at 20.5 though. We'll see what his sector 2 time is once he heads through the tunnel, but looking it could be quite a quick lap this time around. He's currently on a 1:19 is his best currently. His last lap a 1:20, so I imagine he's getting ready for a bit of a charge towards the end of this race. As we're speaking of a bit of a charge, it is between John Baker and Andrew Brammer now. As we see Andrew Brammer gaining slowly but surely on John Baker, that car out in front. He's got a few tenths of a second on him. In fact, no, they are pretty much equal that time round. I know it wasn't, rather. I was looking at the wrong driver. Apologies for that there. It's about 8 tenths of a second advantage to Andrew Brammer, and he's certainly gaining then. If we look at just how much closer he is now at this stage in the lap, he's only a couple of car lengths behind all of a sudden, so he is looking very racy indeed towards the final stages of this race. Could we see Andrew Brammer slowly gaining on P3? No, we're going to see a contact. We're going to see a collision between Andrew Brammer and John Baker. I'm not sure what went on there as we head down towards the hairpin now. It is Andrew Brammer up into P4 there, and I'm sure it's not the way that he wanted that overtake to go there. But as we see there, James Atkins struggling with the car a little bit, and Monaco, as we mentioned just a moment ago, lap traffic this time round. But there is, as I was saying, Andrew Brammer, or rather Alan Matthews, might be under pressure from Paul Millman towards the end of this race. With just over 5 minutes to go now, it is Paul Millman in P3, only a few car lengths behind Alan Matthews now. So Alan Matthews certainly has his work cut out for him. It all went wrong in race 1. It went much better at the start of this race 2. He had a bit of difficulties a few laps ago, but seems to be in a comfortable position once again. But for how long is he comfortable? As we now see the gap standing at about a second. Here, and it could be getting smaller by the second as we head down towards turn 1 once again. Who is using that push-to-pass system up the hill towards turn 3? No one this time around. It has been a bit of a favourite for the drivers to run up to turn 3, deploying that push-to-pass system. They run out of turn 1, especially if you maybe have scrubbed off a little bit of speed. That extra boost in power will make up for it. Gap staying at about 2 seconds this time around. Andrew Brammer currently in P4, heading around the hairpin at the moment. If we go further down the order, meanwhile, it is Paul Brady who is currently leading the AM running. Has done a very nice job of it in race 1. Will be taking home the big points in race 2 as well. This is exactly the weekend that he needed if he wants to try and bring that fight towards James Atkins towards the end of the series. Although, of course, with only one round to go, I think it's pretty much decided at this point. Nathan Birch setting some very quick laps as well. Steve Knight P10, James Atkins P11, and Greg Young P12. Of course, Greg Young still very impressive to see him navigating the Monaco circuit. A bit of a baptism of fire, as he coined it just before qualifying. And he is learning as he goes and is looking a little bit more comfortable in the car this time round as he's looking to unlap himself potentially by the looks of things. In terms of pace at the moment, he's in the 124s now, so he's certainly there with the midfield. It's just a shame it went a little bit wrong for him at the start of the race, because by now, or if we had a race 3, he would be certainly in the mix by the looks of things. So he's learned and adapted quite quickly, he must be said. So congratulations for that, Greg. As we head on board with Paul Millman once again, the gap standing at about 7 tenths of a second as we head on the run down towards the hairpin once again. Can Paul Millman get the overtake on Alan Matthews? They've been threatening it now for a couple of minutes, but will it finally happen as we go on board with Alex Smith? Alex Smith very close indeed to John Baker. There's a bit of a trio forming up all of a sudden. We could see a bit of a battle going on between a few of these cars in a couple of laps time, if we're going to get a few more laps, which I believe we will. Colin Cliff currently leading as we have completed 16 laps with Colin at this stage in the race. John Baker, meanwhile, in P5 under pressure from Alex Smith as we head down towards turn 10. That heavy braker zone, been a bit of a favourite. I'll try that again. Been a bit of a favourite overtaking spot this evening, and there is Paul Millman, in fact, getting past Alan Matthews. Is he? It looks to be there's been a bit of an issue. I'm not sure if there's contact between the two there, but that is a disaster for Alan Matthews. Now off the podium all of a sudden. Andrew Brammer up into P3 as a result of that. Paul Millman, by the looks of things, had to stop to wait around potentially, because Andrew Brammer is now very close to the rear wing of Paul Millman as well. I'm not sure what went on there. Unfortunately, we dived away just at the wrong moment, really. And now we are seeing here Andrew Brammer is certainly challenging for the second spot on the podium by the looks of things. If we compare previous lap times, yeah, there's clearly been a bit of an error between both Paul Millman and Alan Matthews in the 130s that time round. Andrew Brammer, meanwhile, on that previous lap in the 123, so that gap closing right up. That was near enough his best lap of the race as well. So he's clearly in a very comfortable window in terms of pace at the moment, and there is a DNF, unfortunately, for Greg Young, so not quite able to make it to the end of this race this time round. Meanwhile, Alex Smith has found a way past John Baker up into P5 for Alex Smith. John Baker seems to be potentially struggling a little bit with the car now. Willing Bliss, currently P2 in the championship, seems to be trying to find a way past. He's got the pace for it, but will he have the time left in the race? Now with just over a minute to go on the clock, he's going to try and find a way past John Baker, I imagine, as we head down towards turn 10. Under braking, he looks to remove up the outs, or inside really, of turn 10 there. It's all gone a little bit wrong for him, out braking himself potentially with John Baker very late on the brakes there. Had to cut over the curve a little bit. I don't think he'll be penalised for that in any way, but is able to carry on, still leading these two then, as it looks to be there that Willing Bliss really is trying to find a way past there. A little bit of a cut potentially as we head up towards turn 18, but still the order staying the same, as John Baker seemed to be going a little bit wider through all of these corners, setting himself up for a bit of defence on corner exit by the looks of things. And there is Andrew Rammer still in P3 at the moment, hasn't quite caught up to Paul Millman yet, using that push-to-pass system on the run up to turn 3. But this seems to be this podium looking fairly comfortable, even if the order might change towards the very end of the race, as we'll see. Where is Colin Keneath? Colin Keneath just ready to start the next lap, and it will be, this is now the penultimate lap of this race as we head for one final time, or heading towards one final time around Monaco for this evening's racing. What an exciting evening's racing it has been, as we see Willing Bliss battling out with John Baker. John Baker run a little bit wide there. I'm not sure if he's got, it looks to be that he's got some damage on the front end of this car. Of course, damage has been reduced for this evening's running, but that doesn't seem to make too much difference if you've had too many clatters with a barrier there. Of course, you're going to pick up some damage no matter what happens, and there's only a few tenths of a second separating these two there, and that is a bit of a disaster for John Baker. We'll go on board with him as we see him heading into turn 10, still leading somehow. Did a very good job of collecting the car given what happened in the tunnel there. Very, very lucky indeed that there were no major ill effects of that, and I believe there's been contact between the two potentially. I'm not quite sure there. We didn't quite have the correct camera angle to see that really, and there is Willing Bliss trying to find a way past Nathan. Is that Nathan Birch? No, that is Andrew. That's some lap traffic there. That is Nathan Birch, some lap traffic there, but there is Willing Bliss trying to find a way past John Baker, and I might have just given it him on the exit of turn 18. John Baker colliding with the wall ever so slightly, or no, he's had to concede the position there by the looks of things. We're now 3 wide on the start-finish straight. Some lap traffic involved. There's contact between all three. Somehow both drivers, or all three drivers rather, are able to keep it facing the correct direction, or I spoke too soon there. There's contact between Nathan Birch and Willing Bliss, and now both facing the wrong direction. Willing Bliss currently P7 at the moment, and there is Colin Keneath, our race leader, lapping Willing Bliss now by the looks of things there. It's all gone a little bit wrong for Will at turn 1. I apologize if I blew out the microphone a little bit there. All this excitement is pushing the audio system to the extreme by looks of things. Speaking of pushing it to the extreme, it is Andrew Brammer and Paul Millman. Andrew Brammer desperate to try and find a way past now. Only 0.3 of a second separating these two as we head through turn 11. Back on the run down to turn 12. Back at full throttle now. He's lost out a little bit on corner exit, I would say there. What a shame for him. This may be a battle that could have been between these two drivers. And what a battle it could have been between the likes of Willing Bliss and Alex Smith as well, or John Baker rather there. What a shame it wasn't quite to be in the end. As we'll go back on board with Paul Millman and Andrew Brammer for one final time, because we're going to have to focus on Colin Keneath in just a moment's time to see how he deals with the final part of this race. And there's contact between Paul Brady and Paul Millman now. I'm not sure if that was an automatic system that has kicked Paul Millman out for whatever reason. But what a shame to see his race come to an end like this, because it was so well deserved for him. He's had such an impressive weekend. Sat on the podium for both races potentially, but it was too little too late for him. But that doesn't matter now. What matters is Colin Keneath for one final time crosses the line in Monaco to take the race to victory as well. What an impressive weekend it has been for him. He extends his championship lead, which is sealed now. Congratulations to Colin for this championship. It goes to you in 2022. The first half of 2022 goes to Colin Keneath then. An impressive drive as it has been throughout this year's running. Paul Brady coming home to take P8, to take the AM-Race victory as well. Andrew Brammer then still under pressure from Alan Matthews. They're going to bring it to the very bitter end by the looks of things. Andrew Brammer up into P2 of course now as we head through the swimming pool section once again. separated by only 0.2 of a second now. That gap building just a little bit on corner exit as we head through turn 12, one of the tightest parts of the circuit coming up now. So as long as they can keep it out of the barriers, it should be sealed, this order. And Alan Matthews looking very eager to try and find a way past up the inside there. That was very brave. Lucky no major damage came as a result of that. But now on the run down to the start-finish straight, it looks to be that Andrew Brand will be coming home to take the Race 2 victory, starting from further back in the order. He enjoys a very nice podium, very well-deserved podium. Likewise for Alan Matthews, the podium that should have been in Race 1 was to be in Race 2 in the end. Alex Smith, unfortunately, just about missing out on that podium, as he did in Race 1 in the end. John Baker will be coming home P5 after a hard-fought race there. Likewise for Will Inglis. Paul Millman coming home P7 there after some technical issues, potentially, by the looks of things. What a shame what could have been for him as well. Paul Brady coming home P8. Steve Knight P9, James Atkins P10, Nathan Birch P11, and Greg Young classified P12 as well. So that was certainly an exciting, action-packed and turbulent weekend at Monaco, that is for sure. What a way to round out the season's running, because of course we only have Canada left. This was the penultimate round, and what a visit to Monaco it has been. The historic circuit. I'm glad we have it on the calendar. It's good to see it, and it has certainly provided some enjoyable action this evening. So that is all from me for round 11. We'll join you for what will be the final round, round 12, the finale, in a fortnight's time at Canada. Thank you very much for tuning in.